This episode is brought to you by Netflix. 3 couples, 4 vacations, a lot to unpack. Watch The 4 Seasons, a new series starring comedy favorites Tina Fey, Steve Carell, Will Forte, Coleman Domingo, and more in a hilarious and heartfelt love letter to long-term relationships. Based on the original Alan Alda film. Watch The 4 Seasons, May 1st, only on Netflix.
The NBA playoffs are here, and I'm getting my bets in on FanDuel. Talk to me, Chuck GPT. What do you know?
All sorts of interesting stuff, even Charles Barkley's greatest fear.
Hey, nobody needs to know that.
New customers bet $5 to get $200 in bonus bets if you win. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook.
21 plus and present in select states.
Must be first online real money wager. $5 deposit required. Bonus issued is non-withdrawable bonus bets that expires 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See full terms at FanDuel.com/sportsbook. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Another episode of Keeping Current with Kansas City. This is Stabell from the KC Soccer Journal. With me, Daniel Sperry, who we are both tired. He has much more legitimate reason. And even though we are tired, we still had to digress and talk about black bears, bobcats, and why you should not pet them.
Why you
How you
should
doing?
not pet them. It's a pretty logical train of thought there in reality.
It is, but you know how many reports I've seen just in the last couple months? Tourist maimed by elk.
Yes.
You don't go up to the huge animal and say hi, dude.
Animal with either sharp teeth or sharp things poking out of its head. Bison, the Yellowstone bison one every year gets me. Of like that, do you not realize that's not like just some soft cuddly creature you can go pet? They will destroy you.
And you know,
The power of 1,000 NFL linebackers.
this is I don't think this is going to be the greatest analogy that I'm about to make, but this is why attackers should not take on Haley Mace. You just don't mess with that, man. She's going to destroy you.
She destroyed quite a few people on Sunday. My word, man.
Okay, maybe it was a better analogy than I
It's
thought
very
it was
good. It was a good analogy. It was a great lead in to the game.
Segue.
You should have just kept rolling with it. Nobody would have known that it was out of your
uh,
rear end there.
I think anybody who's listened to this enough knows that a lot of this is conversation. It's sometimes pulled out of various locations, and it sometimes has a plan and sometimes does not.
Yes.
However, we are here to talk about the KC Current and their win, the game, and the next game, probably, and whatever other news we have.
Yeah.
All right, 4-1 win. A little disappointing. It was only 4-1. They didn't get a shutout again. But 4-1 win, man. Not too bad.
Yeah. Both of us predicted like this very disgusting defensive battle in our podcast beforehand, and I'm before that match, and I'm very glad that we were all wrong.
Yeah, I think I might have said 2-1 just because I figured they would win, but they would give up a goal. So I at least got that part right. I
Yes.
think. I think I said that.
Sure.
Yeah. Uh,
I'll allow you
revisionist
that.
history. I'll go back and edit it later. No, just I'm too lazy to do that.
Um,
Another
yeah.
early goal.
Another early goal, obviously helped set the tone. I think that early start is always huge. But like it really does set the tone. It really does force teams to kind of abandon their game plan in a way. And now I don't know that it necessarily made Bay FC abandon their game plan, per se. They seemed it was a relatively attack-minded lineup. In the build up to the match, Albertine Montoya had talked about Bay FC being more aggressive and getting forward and stuff because they'd kind of played a very defensive shell and it didn't work for the last couple of games. So like there's some things there with that they were going to come out to play and um, contrast that with the low blocks that the Current faced the last 2 games. They came out to play and the Current actually got to play ball.
Yeah, it was it ended up like, yeah, they came out to play, and that made it for an entertaining game. It doesn't make great keeper stats in the long run, but she did play pretty well, I thought.
Yeah.
Uh, it just probably there's probably one of those maybe that she probably could have saved, but other than that, I don't fault Silkowitz,
Hmm.
poor former current keeper, but good for her.
Yeah.
What stood out? So the early start, Bay came out to play, but what stood out? Like, I mean, Dabinia obviously was a little bit on.
Yeah. I think Dabinia was on from the get-go. The I just thought that there was a determined um attack, a determined press, and in a way that the current kind of were able to at times kind of sleepwalk through a couple of games, and get results. They got some penalty kicks that went their way too in a couple of games that allowed for them to, maybe not attack with the type of force that we saw, especially in the first half, of that match. And the last 3 or 4 games, I felt like the Current just weren't as front-footed, off the get-go. And I think, they scored the goal, and then there was a stretch there for another good 2, 3 minutes. And I texted our old pal, Jeff Husted, who was sitting behind me in the press box. And I said, this is going to get ugly if if the back line for Bay FC does not figure out the channels that the Current are finding daylight through. Haley Mace was flying up from the back, which is a kind of a departure from what we saw. They were overloading in numbers. They were getting the balls vertically through, the channels that they wanted to, and into the spaces and the positions and the goal creating chance areas that the Current wanted to be in. There was nothing that was really getting blocked or deflected away from Bay, by Bay per se. And I think that, to me, like, that was that was it. I'm just looking right now, the great chart. Thank you to the wonderful, um, NWSL stats, or NWSL analytics on Blue Sky. Um, there is just a gigantic absence of defensive actions in any way, shape, or form in the Bay FC's right-hand flank. And that overload of Izzy Rodriguez, Temwa Chawinga down that side, and then through the middle, Kayla Sharples was playing, like double line breaking passes, from the back up to Temwa. There was ball like Bia was pinching in over to that side to kind of link up and play with Temwa.
Yeah,
Dabinia was operating on that side, and Bay FC had no answer. And the stat sheet shows they had no answer down that side. So, like I said, that I think just the current had control in the way that they were able to find the spaces that they wanted to create that forward line pressure, that pinned Bay FC back, and they were opportunistic, in the opportunities that they finished away.
uh, who who would you say was the player of the game? Is it Dabinia just obviously because of the two goals, or was it somewhere else in there that because sometimes the person who scores the two goals is not necessarily the best player. It's,
Yeah, I get that. I think for me it was Dabinia. I really do. I just thought that her action on and every time she got the ball in the final third, I thought the Current could score a goal. And like
yeah,
that wasn't like one of the I don't know how to, like, that wasn't like, it's not like that hasn't happened in the past, but it literally was like, with the way that the game was shaping up, where they got Dabinia on the ball, how Bay FC couldn't defend or wasn't tracking and picking up runs. There was daylight in acres and acres of space. And I don't mean this like as a, you know, Dabinia was actually playing kind of in on the wing, as well. But like, every single time she got on the ball, I thought they could score a goal. She played more like a winger, in that match, than when she was asked to be a winger before Nichelle Prince came on. More so in other matches, she kind of stayed home to being a winger instead of cutting inside. And the width created space through the middle, and it was just tons and tons of opportunities for players to pass the ball into space and in on goal by the way that they kind of had Bay FC spaced out. So Debinha for me easily the best player on the field. I thought the threat of Temwa though, you saw how much they missed that too. And even though she only picks up a goal, and I don't think she gets an assist on any of the other actions in the game, I think she was one of the most influential players. Maybe not the best individual performance with the ball at her feet, but I think the way she influenced the game and the way she influenced Bay FC was just massive. And you can see how much they miss her when she's not on the field.
Yeah, that's we talked about this before this game, I think, that
Hmm.
how Timois and Michelle Cooper are what in the military we would have used the term or force multipliers. So each one is a force in itself, but combined with anything else is just like double the force or whatever number you want to throw out there.
Yeah.
And you could see that with Timois being out there and looking more Timois like than she has for the previous couple games. I think that's the biggest thing they've been missing is Michelle and Timois being out there at the same time and healthy. Um, Timois was questionable coming into the game, if I remember correctly.
Hmm.
And, you know, when we were there the other day, she was just testing on the side. But I think the telltale sign was when they were doing some testing on the side and coaches walked away smiling that you thought, okay, cool, that she might get in the game. Didn't think she would play the majority of it though.
Yeah, I was kind of stunned she started, but to me, like if she's going to start, I think the KC current like staff, medical staff is not one. Um, these days to put a player out there against maybe better advice. So I think this is one of those things where um, I trust the medical team in kind of assessing how long she could go. And I think Vlaco does a good job of trusting them and figuring out what his lease is for a player with minutes for injuries. And, it was great to see her in there. And Michelle Prince, again, very good in the minutes that she came on. I also thought she
Yeah.
was lively too. So I think they've managed those injuries as well as they can and are bringing them back into the fold. And hopefully Michelle Cooper, whenever she can come back, can have that same kind of, you know, steps in and you don't really feel like she's missed a beat from being out because I think that's how it felt with Temwa and Michelle Prince. You never, with the way that they played in those games, you couldn't have told that they've been out for a couple of weeks.
Yeah. Now I do want to make sure because you said that they were the current staff would not be ones to in these days put them player out there. That was not in any way what I was implying. It was there something like that. It was that you could tell
Correct.
by the smile that yes, they were there was really positive signs that she would be able to play. And I was just a little surprised that it was as long as it was. Not that it was incorrectly.
Correct.
Just wanted to kind of make sure.
Correct. Sorry.
No, it's no. I'm just I get in trouble enough for things I say about coaches. Um, all right, so Dabinia, really good. Timois, uh, Bia got the early goal. The one disappointment is that one goal they gave up, though.
Yep. A set piece and a secondary action off a set piece again.
Does this, yeah,
Um,
seem familiar?
Yeah, it's the header back across the goal, the flick header. Everybody's focused on the first action, and the second action is open, which is the flick header from the near post to the back post. And it's a really good job by Penelope Hawking to control that ball, get that finish off. But like again, the current are left scrambling and out of position on a second action because they oversold the first action. Um, and I don't know if like there needs to be better communication. Do they need to redo the assignments? Are people confused on the assignments? Um, because the current are kind of a mix of zonal and man, which is kind of typical these days for set piece
Yeah,
defense. And I have last year for a while they were full zonal. They switched to zonal hybrid man and they kind of alleviated some of their set piece issues. But again, too, like this was an issue that they faced last year. and conceding goals this way in set pieces, and stuff like that. And like I think that's something that they'll probably continue to look at. Obviously, the scouting report is out there on that. I have to think about the team across town, right? Like the scouting report on Sporting was if you crowd the goalkeeper and put the ball right into that central mixer, you have a very good shot at getting a goal.
Yeah.
Well, Sporting figured that out. They figured out how to defend it. That's no longer part of the scouting report. Teams can't do that and aren't doing that to Sporting anymore because they've figured out a better way to organize people in the box. So there's these ebbs and flows to it. Um, just like teams will figure out they think they figured out how to stop Temwa because she doesn't score for 2 games, and then all of a sudden she's going to go off and do a bunch. There's ebbs and flows and evolutions to these tactical games that happen, and right now the current are getting bit on it. Sooner or later, maybe they'll be on the other side of it.
Yeah, I'm not as concerned about it as I maybe would have been, previous years with other different coaches. I know that Vlaco will have that figured out. And like you said, it is ebbs and flows, and it's just the nature of the business. But when it does happen multiple times over several
Hmm.
games, then you
Yeah.
start to like, okay, you need to focus on it a little bit better. Like me,
Yeah.
one time, yeah, okay. Two times, yeah.
Hmm.
Three
Yeah.
times, okay. You really need to lock this down and figure out what's going wrong here.
Yeah.
But it's
And
also there
we're
has
on the
been
fourth
some,
time. That's the
yeah.
thing. This is a point where going into the week, they were talking about set piece defense. Going into the week before that, set piece defense. Now again, they're going to be coming out of that game, and it's going to be set piece defense. And you hope that sooner or later that turns a tide and it doesn't become a Achilles heel that is present with his team all year long.
The other thing too to look at, which I have not dove into it this far, is what players were on the field at the moment when these happened.
Hmm.
Because they've also had some injuries in and out and changing of players on the back line. Alana was hurt for a little bit. They've switched out outside backs a little bit here and there, and midfielders too. So they all come into play in that. So it's some they will get that figured out,
Hmm.
and if not, Vlaco will be very unhappy with them.
Yeah.
All right, so good performance. Bounce. I won't say bounce back, but get the 4-1 result after a couple of losses on the road. Still tight games, pretty decent performances, but not what you were expecting from a infallible KC Current those previous 2 games. But they come back, they get the win, but now they have to
Hmm.
go against the other big name in the league right now. There's really more than just one more, but the one that everybody talks about, the rivalry,
Yeah.
Orlando on the road at the Pride on Friday. Any what's your first thoughts on what's going to happen here?
I mean, I feel like this is going to be tight. This is going to be a chess match. Um, the current will try and do the things that they're good at on the road, which is try and control the game, be picky and selective with the moments that they get forward, and make sure that they cash in on those. Um, I think at home on the road they tend to be less high press front footed than they do on the road. Um, but I think in general, I don't I'd be shocked to see there being more than like 3 goals scored at this game. I just this has kind of one of those early season feel each other out kind of games. Last year the first match between the two was kind of well into the season. You had this really long streak. They had all pulled away. Both teams have lost games this year. Both teams know the end game that they'll both probably be towards the top of the table, and potentially seeing each other in the playoffs. This is kind of one of those of like you know, we go into halftime 0-0, and they're just trying to feel the other out, and how the other is going to try and attack them and maybe do something different. I'm curious to see how it plays out. I think the current have looked a tiny bit different this year than they have last year, and I think Orlando has looked much of the same, which if you're going to be as good as Orlando was last year, like why fix what's broken? But at the same time, well, why fix anything if anything isn't broken? That's what I meant. But like, I don't know. This first one feels cagey to me because there's not a whole lot writing on this at this point outside of the bragging rights.
Yeah, but it is the bragging rights. It is perhaps making a little distance between two teams or closing the gap back up,
Yeah.
uh, in the standings. And while they are the two teams that most everybody looks at as being the two competitors for first place, you got to remember the Spirit are only a couple points back. Also, I mean they're 3 points back from the Current, but only 1 point back from the Pride. Wave are 1 point behind that. Angel City's 1 point behind that. Thorns are 1 point behind that. And that table isn't very far separated yet. So you don't want to be letting yourself be drug into that mix if you can avoid it. So
ChatGPT Plus is free for college students through May. Here's the thing. You've got a lot to do between now and then. Studying for finals, writing papers, trying to keep your life on track, and ChatGPT can help with all of it. It can quiz you for your econ exam, make a study guide from your French notes, plan out your meals and study breaks. It can get really specific on how you like to learn. It can even help you come up with ways to stop procrastinating. So from now until summer break, take advantage of all the ways ChatGPT can make your life easier. Restrictions apply.
I got to think that a lot of it comes down to who's healthy at the moment. I mean, we know that Temois came back this last game and played well, and other players are doing well, but it's Current are still nowhere near their best. They don't have Michelle Cooper there yet.
Nope. And yeah, I still think maybe they're trying to figure out the best combination of outside backs. We saw Ellie Wheeler for a while, saw Haley Mace for a while, saw Izzy Rodriguez out
Yep.
there. Ellie can play on both sides. Haley can play on both sides. Like, I think there's still a few things that just kind of have to be figured out, and that's okay. But yeah, I between a few injuries, like I think it's probably good for the Current in a way that this won't give Orlando a full picture of what they are yet, no matter what the result is. And I think that allows Vlaco to keep more cards in his pocket down the future.
It's probably a question we should ask him tomorrow when we get the opportunity.
Yeah,
Another outside back that they put out there is Lacho
of
Marta
course.
for one game.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's trying to remember. Has anybody else played outside back this year?
Not yet.
Yeah, not that I remember, unless it was just a fill-in spot for a few minutes. Oh, did Reagan play there for a little bit? One of these games.
Reagan
Anyway,
hasn't played a minute yet.
oh, Bailey Feist, maybe that's who I was thinking. Sorry,
Maybe
but anyway, yeah, they're still figuring this out. What would be your prediction? 1-1.
1-1 or 0-0 is how it feels to me. I'll be
Yeah,
shocked if I'll be shocked if it's 2-2 or higher.
I would not be shocked if it's 2-1 either way, honestly.
Yeah.
But it's just would come down to a mistake, a slipped pass somewhere, and one of the other sides is off and running and scoring. So,
Yeah.
see anything else we need to cover? I mean, there's been a little bit of current news. Two Brazilians called up for the national
Yes.
team.
Debinha finally called back into the national team along with Lorena.
Yep.
Very good for Debinha. Sorry, I'm yawning here. Goodness gracious, they're like coming in waves here. Yeah, Dabinia. I'm not tired of talking here, but I'm never tired of talking. Thad knows that.
Oh
But
yeah. Amen, brother.
good for Dabinia. She
Yeah.
deserves it. She's been on an absolute tear. What is it now? 5 goals, 3, 4 assists, or something like that on the year. Just
Yeah.
flying.
It's
MVP. She should be leading the race for MVP in my opinion.
well, definitely in there for sure. Yeah, but it's good that they remembered she existed. But again, I I'm also not that upset that they were not calling her in because at her age and if you're trying to build younger players for meaningful matches in the future,
Hmm.
I get that. I don't always enjoy it, but I get that. So, but yeah, hard to not call her in when she's been tearing up the NWSL. And we shame on both of us. We both mentioned Dabinia got 2 goals, but we really did not cover the pretty spectacularly good free kick that went up over the wall just inside. Silkowitz just gets a touch on it, bounces it off the post, and in. So that's a pretty good goal.
Yeah,
So how did we both not mention that?
because we're bad people.
No, because we're tired.
That's probably it.
Let's see, other current news. The pitch side is now officially going to be in the stadium.
Well, yeah, I mean, it has been.
I
So
know.
I've gotten coffee from them. The Alana cookie dough latte a couple games ago, I think it was the Houston game, was phenomenal. So
I'm not a real coffee person, but I understand that they have good stuff. So is
they
it going to
do.
be just to continue to be like that trailer? It's not going to be like a
I did that. I don't know. I'm not a 100% sure. But I'm glad that they have a better coffee alternative. Because sometimes in the summer I want iced coffee and not hot coffee, and there's only a Keurig up there, which will suffice in need of caffeine, but I'm picky. In the summer I
yeah.
want cold coffee.
I will assume it's going to continue to be the truck. It mentions the truck, but
Yeah.
it doesn't specifically say that that's how it's going to be. But one bad side about it is when I'm trying to get from one spot to the other in the stadium, there is a backup of a line in that spot because there's like bathrooms on one side, pitch sides on the other, and it's sometimes a little bit of a maze to get through there.
Yeah.
I had some poor kid in the head at the last game with
Oh,
my just an elbow. I mean, it wasn't like
shame. Dad's out here throwing bows because he can't get through to the other side of the stadium. What a guy. I'm just kidding.
I did say sorry for about 3 seconds as I kept on going.
Oh, it's okay. You're royalty here.
I don't think so.
Oh boy. Well,
I'm still unhappy with Zach for posting that photo. Um, Mostly because I'm about to head to St. Louis, where I may be really persona non grata there. All right, man. Any other things we should talk about? Uh, Casey Current or
no, I mean, just prayers up to Savvy King. That was
yeah.
a scary, scary situation on Friday night. I didn't see any of it like live and in real time. But I recall watching the Euros a couple years back. Was actually sitting in Joe's with some friends, Joe's KC, with some friends from Austin, who were out here to A, cover the game, and B, between Austin and Sporting, the first ever matchup, and B, uh, experience some barbecue. And so we got some really good barbecue, and um, we're watching the game, and Christian Eriksen went down. Shocking, stunning, absolutely ruined the mood. And I'm stunned that the match continued on. Um, and Meg Linehan wrote a really good column over at The Athletic today, about it. Uh, but just incredibly scary moment. Glad she's okay. Glad she came out of it the other side. But
Have
yeah, what
have
a
have they given any like a real update on her medical condition? So I mean,
outside of that, the last I heard was that I thought she was at least stable.
well, I
Yeah, but
well,
I don't, there's been no updates really, I think, from Angel City since like Sunday.
yeah, I hadn't heard any, but I sometimes get very sidetracked throughout a day and don't pay any attention to stuff.
Yeah,
So no, I just yeah, best wishes to Savvy and hopefully everything's okay. And we need to always remember that as much as we sit here and talk soccer, there are far more important things in soccer. Family, health, friends, many other things as well. And soccer is a wonderful, amazing diversion, which is why I like talking about soccer and not a lot of other things.
agreed.
So anyway, everybody just remember hug your friends, family, people that you hold dear in some way, shape, or form, or hope to at some point, and give them all a hug and make sure that they know that you care. And we are out.